Behind the Shades.
I'm Annie Emprima-Martin. There is only one Emprima out there. So if you type in Emprima, um, what I do now is I work in the world of metaphysics. I have a full-time practice and a TikTok account that has quite the busy lineup. But that all sort of started from a sequence of events that happened about 6-7 years ago.
Perfect. So you mentioned TikTok. I'm still trying to figure out TikTok. So any tips from you to me?
Authenticity. TikTok is the place where you can't pretend. You have to be you. And the audience doesn't want the polished version like you would on Instagram. The TikTok audience wants to know who you are. They want the truth and they want to know the vulnerabilities of who you are.
So raw, unedited, in your face, transparent, without a grain of salt. Just you, unadulterated.
Yeah. Perhaps not the like completely casual version, but the moderate version.
Perfect. So you're going to take us through your journey, and your journey begins, well, it didn't begin this way, but ultimately you ended up divorced. So take us from the very, very beginning. How did you get married? How did you guys meet? And how did it lead up to you ultimately getting a divorce?
So we knew each other in high school. He was my boyfriend's best friend. They lived 13 miles apart from where I lived. They went to the same school. So we hung out whenever I was with my boyfriend, 16 years old. Tim was there. And I didn't think much of it. I didn't think much of it at all. He went off to Germany in the army. He went off to Germany for the army. And I just continued on my life. And then he finished his 6-year tour, came back to our hometown, our home area, and wanted to hang out. And by then I had already broken up with my boyfriend. We had parted ways and still nothing happened. He moved to Las Vegas. I came from New England. And I didn't hear much from him for about 6 more years. And then he sent me an email saying, "Hey, I'm back at home to visit my family. I want to hang out with you." And I was like, well, it just so happens I'm in Las Vegas for the first time in my life, chaperoning a teenager. Why don't we meet up when you get back? And so that sort of led into us dating. And, I look back, being in metaphysics, it's really about training intuition. And so that voice in my head at the first moment, that first day I got down at the airport, came down the stairs, the voice said, "Don't do it." And before we got really intimate, the voice said, "Don't do it." And before we got married, the voice said, "Don't do it." And I just sort of dismissed that voice and didn't really, I didn't know to trust it at the time. It's not until you look back, you're like, oh, the signs were there. But when you're in it, you just sort of think your mind is playing games on you and it's not your intuition. So we were married. We were married for about 10 years. And then I deployed. That was sort of the catalyst, is coming back from deployment.
I know for me, when I look back on some of my relationships, I swear, and I crack this joke every single time, I say I must have had stardust in my eyes, because I have no idea how I got myself caught up in some of these situations. But then when you remember how it felt, it was like this overwhelming feeling where it's like, it feels so good, but it's like chocolate cake. I know it's so bad for me.
Mm-hmm.
Was it one of those moments when you look back, or was it like everything is good, then it became bad?
No, it wasn't good, because we fought a lot before we even got married. But I was comparing it to what I was leaving. I left a misogynistic Catholic family. So in comparison to that, with an overbearing father that had his own addictive tendencies, and I didn't see that either, I was leaving one situation for what I thought was a better situation. And it was, looking back, it was better than the where I grew up, but it wasn't as good as what I deserved. And I didn't have that perspective yet. It wasn't until I would say the recent years, the past 3-4 years, that I can look back and say why I was short selling myself, because I didn't think I didn't feel worthy enough to seek something greater.
It's like on a scale, this situation is bad, my home life,
Mhm.
but this person is better than that, but they're not necessarily good enough for what I want out of my life. But if I'm going to compare the two, I rather have the lesser of two evils. For example, right? It's like the person who who's alone,
Mhm.
but Johnny down the street who's very toxic. It's not good for them, but they're a companion. They're around once they pick up that call, right? If it's a slow Thursday and I'm like, I kind of want a warm bed,
Yeah.
pick up Johnny, even though he's not good for you. But down the road, it can't last that long because eventually you're going to say, Annie, Terrain, what the hell am I doing in this situation? What was your aha moment? I got to get out of here.
Oh, so I came back from deployment 10 years, and we didn't have a honeymoon. And in my mind, we didn't have the finances, but he was a spender. So I was always chasing. And when I came back from deployment, I thought, okay, he's had a year. Surely he's saved up enough money to go on a cruise or a vacation or a honeymoon that I never got when we got married. And not only did I not get that grand vacation that I felt entitled to, I got an anniversary card for my 10-year anniversary from my husband, a $4.95 card. And I was so offended. So I had asked for a divorce, but right around that same time, and I can't remember exactly if it was before I asked for the divorce or shortly after, I came back from the deployment with injured knees. I had injured knee, injured ankle. My wrists were not good. Because I was going in and out of Iraq, and you have to be full battle rattle. It's a lot of gear, about 110 pounds of gear. And you got to jump off the back of the C-130, which is about 18 inches, 2 feet. You're jumping down, but you're jumping down with 110 pounds of extra gear that you've got, and you've got to get off the flight line really quick. So I came back with injuries. And so I was hobbling quite a bit. I was not in an okay space. I came back with PTSD, all this thing. And my husband's empty. He had dissociated the entire deployment. He wasn't home to catch me. And I'm like mentally falling, and he's not there. And I remember climbing up the stairs of our brand new 2-story home. And I got to the top landing, and I tripped over my own feet. And I fell to the floor. My knees hit the carpet without a lot of padding. And I just started bawling, because in that moment, I knew I couldn't be a mom. I couldn't be a wife. I couldn't be a business owner. My whole life just felt like I hit the brick wall. And I just started crying, and I'm praying to God, which wasn't something I did super often. And I'm saying, God, please take this from me. Take this. Like, I can't, and I'm swearing in my own head. Like, I knew I was emotionally exhausted and mentally exhausted and spiritually exhausted and physically exhausted. There was nothing left of me. The adrenaline from the deployment had crashed. There was no one there to be the safe net when I came home. I just like had this explosive emotional moment. And I'm saying, please take this, please take this. And I have no witnesses in my house. I'm by myself, just screaming, please take this. And this voice came in my head. And the voice said, we've been waiting for you to let go. And it was like, when you have those moments in Hollywood where all the flashes, like in a Hollywood movie where all the clues flash in front of you that you completely missed. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I am holding on to all these broken things. And I was so insistent that I was going to make this white picket fence life work, that I didn't see how broken my fence was. Everything. And that was a hugely pivotal moment in my life of how much I was holding on to that wasn't even mine. It wasn't my shit. It wasn't my stuff. So that was the catalyst to everything moving forward.
How many years of emotional buildup do you think you were able to release at that moment?
Um, over 3 decades. It wasn't, it was a lot of my marriage. It was a lot of the resentment I had in my marriage, because I genuinely felt like I had not just my son, but I had children. I was and I had even said that. I would talk to people and subconsciously I would just blurt out, "Oh yeah, I have to go get dinner ready for my children." And they say, "You have more kids?" I'm like, "No, I just have one. I don't know why I said that." But I said that about 4 or 5 times during my marriage, and never once after I got divorced. I didn't realize that I was filling the role of his mother. So I was taking on the responsibilities of being his mother, and I was carrying this extra weight that wasn't even mine. But I had done that with my father too, and I'm just not even consciously aware of it. I didn't realize my dad was codependent, so I didn't see it in my ex-husband as being ultra codependent. And so it was not just the deployment, and it wasn't just a little bit of my marriage. It was my entire marriage and my entire childhood and my entire military, all wrapped into this moment.
It was like you were still carrying the 110 pounds of military gear, just instead of actual physical weight, it was this emotional and mental weight, right? And many women will state that as a complaint or as an issue where they feel like they're not in a serious relationship, or at least one that is viewed as husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. Many times you hear a lot of women say, I feel like I'm his mother.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm taking care of an adult child.
Yeah.
When you first said, oh, I have to go home and make dinner for my children, and then you caught yourself, wait a minute, I only have one.
Mhm.
How did that make you feel when you first realized you're actually viewing your situation as more so of a mother to two children versus a mother and a wife?
The first time I dismissed it. I didn't even digest what I was saying. But it wasn't until after I got divorced and I was living in the house that I'm in now by myself, did I see the micro moments of weaponized incompetence. Like I would send him to the grocery store to get certain grocery items, text it to him. These are the things I need. Can you grab them? And we had 3 supermarkets within 2 miles in any direction. And he would come back with alcohol, like beer and snacks and bratwurst or whatever he wanted. I'm like, where's the items I asked for? Oh, I forgot. So then what I learned is that I couldn't send him to go grocery shopping. And then I would come home, like if he got fired from his job or something happened where, I mean, there were times when he got fired from his jobs, and I would be working extra hours, and I would be still carrying the burden of being mother, and then come home and he would meet me at the door and then take me on a tour of all the cleaning he did. Like, look how I did this, look how I did this, and look how I did this. And I folded the clothes and thinking, these are the things I do every day. No one pats me on the back for this shit. Like this is what adulting is. But I would go through this entire tour of how he vacuumed and how he took the garbage out and how he folded the laundry and made the bed. And I would just be so frustrated. And he would take that as me not understanding his code of love. And I'm like, this isn't a code of love with a lateral partner. This is what a child would be proud of doing. My 13-year-old now would want me to be proud of him for doing all of those things, not a grown man in his 40s. So, but I didn't see those moments until I was divorced and had time to just be in silence for a while and reflect back. I didn't see it when I was in it. I just saw this is what we do, and this is sort of his quirkiness. I dismissed it.
I know for me, I read a book and you mentioned Code of Love, and it was a book called The Love Languages.
Mhm.
And one thing I really liked about it, it separated how some people like to be acknowledged or at least cared for, right? And then when I took a further dive working with the men and women that I work with, some of these show up more so in regards to like men and more so with women. And hearing that story, it poses a question to me. I wonder if he was looking for, what's the word I'm looking for? Affirmation, or at least being validated in
Yeah,
what
the
he was
validation.
doing, right?
Mhm.
Because to us, it may seem, wait a minute, 8-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds do all these things. But to some adults, it could be, hmm, you want me to acknowledge it? Okay, I'm going to acknowledge this, or at least pose the question, because it does seem a little bit odd maybe to you and I, because
Mhm.
cleaning is cleaning. It's like for example, the father who says, "I take care of my kids." You're supposed to take care of your kids. You're the dad,
Yeah, yeah, it's your
right?
job. That's
It's
your
your
job.
job, right? But on the flip side, they're like, okay, you want to rah with the troops. Do you think it was a little bit of that where he just wanted validation from you, or was it maybe something else?
I think it was, I think it expanded beyond just normal validation, because if I had a lot of friends over, let's say I had female friends and we were doing something like a women veteran meeting at my kitchen table, he would offer to cook meals and then present it to us and seek the validation there too. So it wasn't, if I were to go back, now that I can go back and look at it from a metaphysical perspective, it was that inner child wanting to be admired or acknowledged or validated. Just like my son, when I have a party here, he wants to be a part of the group too. But if you're not a woman veteran, if you're not a woman and you're not a woman veteran at the table, you have to play a role some other way to get attention. So I was seeing it in that sense of, he couldn't sit at the table and have the conversation with us, but if he was serving food, then that justified him being in the room and participating in the conversation. And
It's like the adult version of pulling on your pants leg.
yeah,
Mommy, look,
I mean, look,
right? They're trying to get your attention. And now that you moved out of the situation, out of the marriage, and when you look back, were you surprised of the type of woman that you became to leave that marriage and still continue your life going forward?
the evolution of Annie has been, uh, I wrote a 360-page book looking at all of these moments in my life, and then I tied them to psychology theories and studies and philosophies of how we handle we handle emotions and trauma and how we react and respond to certain stimuli. So I wrote a book saying, like, this is what happened in my childhood, and this is the study that explains learned helplessness. This is what, like, attachment disorder, and this is the part in my life where I saw that, because I had to go back and reflect in the journey that I'm on and the mission that I'm on. I had to be able to go back and examine these individual moments through my timeline. So I don't, it wasn't even through, it wasn't just my marriage, it was everything leading up to that post-deployment period. I had to shed all of that in order for me to evolve to who I need to be.
Some of what was happening in your marriage, did you see that in your childhood growing up between your parents' marriage?
No, I didn't see it in that sense. What I saw was, um I didn't have emotional, my parents were not emotionally available. I remember being 13 years old. My parents went and got separated on my 13th birthday without any thought to the emotional impact and the psychological impact that would have on their oldest 13-year-old child. That was the first time I remember hugging my father and how awkward it felt to have this man hugging me when he was my father, but he was not the man that protected me, or the man that brought me the safety, or the man that brought, he was just my father. And I remember being 13 thinking, this is a really awkward hug. I don't know what to do with this. So my marriage was a little bit different. I think I needed to be needed. And so I went to the opposite of being invisible with my father to like being too visible with my husband and too needed. It was still fulfilling. I was still playing the same game, just from a different angle, the different role of child needing father's attention to my husband needing my attention.
I remember there's one time I had a relationship and it ended because I usually, and I'm gonna preface this by saying I like women of all ages as long as they're adults. Right?
Within
As long as they're
the
adults.
legal rules.
Exactly. Because in Canada, it's a little bit younger than in the States and other places. So I usually date women that are older just because I don't want to get married. I don't want to have children. So I wouldn't want to be in a situation, let's say I'm in my 30s and I date a 32-year-old and she wants to have children, have marriage. That wouldn't jive, right? And I'm not one of those people that wants to make someone wait for me until I change my mind.
Yeah.
And I remember one time one of my relationship ended. To your point, you want to go to like sometimes you want to go to the other extreme. So this person was about 10 years, almost 10 years older than me. And I said, you know what? After this relationship, I'm going to get myself a young girl because you want to go all the way, right? And then I look at my parents, and when my parents divorced, I saw it coming. I wasn't surprised. What I was surprised about was that they had a better relationship after the divorce.
Yeah.
Their interaction is what post-divorce is what I wish I saw pre-divorce. And you mentioned awkwardness with your parents when it comes to your father hugging. My parents didn't ever tell us they loved us. We didn't necessarily feel it. Yeah, we had a roof over our head, we had food in our belly. But that's standard for parenting, right? Like you have a kind of a nonverbal oath to your child saying that I want to give this child that I helped create a better life than me. So I remember the awkwardness, but my question, I guess, for you, when you felt the awkwardness of your father, and then you ended up getting married, were there points of time in your marriage where you felt kind of awkward, even though you were going from not being visible to being a lot more visible?
Yeah, because he wanted more affection. Like he always wanted to like very much how my son is always wants to be with me. And there's times when I don't want to be the one, I didn't want to be the one nurturing. I wanted to be the one that like fell into his arms, where I could exhale, where I could surrender, where I could not be the one in charge. And I didn't realize how exhausted I was waiting for that, because it wasn't him being the one saying, I've got your back. He was the one that we would go out drinking and I would say, I want it to be my turn to drink and you drive. And then he would see everybody else having a good time and drink more than I drank and was no longer the designated driver after we agreed for him to be the designated driver. So I didn't have that sense of safety with him, but that was what I was seeking. Because I didn't have the sense of safety with the sort of absence of emotion. And then I think in just that subconscious exchange, I went for someone who was exhibiting more of a need for that. And I thought, okay, this would be a better fit for me. And it turns out that also, it's like, the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, that was also too much. I'm looking for just right.
You know what you would be looking for going forward, since you've had not enough, too much, but you probably want something in between. So what are you looking for now?
It's interesting. I was dating someone earlier this year and they asked that question. And I said, I don't need someone to financially take care of me. I don't need someone to always be at my beck and call. What I need is someone to hold space for me. I have a career. I have a mission. I'm going forth in this space. I want someone who's a safety net, who's that safe person who I don't need them to provide for me in physical, tangible ways, but emotionally to be my safe place, my mirror, my rock, my landing pad when things get heavy, where I can say, this is what's going on in my life. I just want to to exhale and know that you're going to catch me if I fall.
So like someone to make you feel safe when maybe
Safe.
you can't do it all alone, someone to make you feel inspired,
Oh,
right? Let's
huge.
say,
That would be beautiful.
absolutely. Let's say, for example, you're having not the best of days, Annie, and you come home and the person that you would be with at that time, they see you, it's all written on your face, right? And they just come up, they just give you a hug, something along those lines.
Oh, the power of being seen and heard is and valued. Yeah. No, without me having to say a word to say, you look like you had a bad day. And that's all I need. And then that hug that comes after it has more value than anything money can buy, has more value than anything somebody physically, tangibly can provide me. That has more value to me today. And that's probably what I've been seeking my whole life, is the permission to go and be myself in the grandest way possible, and know that I can come home to my lateral, my counterpart, my equal but opposite, and be anchored when I'm flying too far away. Like, let me pull you back in.
That's something that I try to teach a lot of the women that I speak to, is that when you go outside of your home, you can be Xenia Warrior Princess.
Yeah.
You could be Wonder Woman, right? But when you come home, there's a lot of women who are very powerful, who hold very powerful jobs, who are very powerful presence in the corporate world. When they come home, they just want that. Hold me, make me feel like you're my protector, make me feel safe in your arms. And I think a lot of us forget how important the companionship part of a relationship is, as well as just saying that, hey, you're having a rough day. Let's put on a movie and let's just watch. And all you're doing is watching a movie and holding each other.
Yeah.
Right?
The place where I can take off all my masks and not be judged, and in fact be honored for not wearing the masks.
Is that the type of home that you'd want to build going forward?
Yeah, that's what I wish for my son, is for him to find when he's older, to find a partner that sees him and hears him and supports him without it being toxic or unbalanced, just equal but opposite.
What are perhaps some of the obstacles that you feel that people are facing that maybe prevents them from showing that type of companionship, compassion, as well as understanding with just by the body language what their partner is going through?
I think at some basic levels, if we've never been taught that, we don't know to give that. If we've never seen it emulated, we don't have that mirror to know what that looks like. And we also have to move through our own traumas and be responsible and accountable for our own feelings, and to move through those. That shouldn't be my partner's job. It's not my partner's job to fix me. It's not my partner's job to heal me, but perhaps it's my partner's job to hold the mirror, so to be the trusted mirror for me to see my own things, and to be honest of, hey, what I'm seeing from my angle is looking a little wonky. What's going on? And trusting that I or my partner, when that is shared, can hold the courage to lean into that and self-reflect and correct.
I wonder if we would ever reach a world where it's two people get together and they just understand each other to the point where it's okay if we're all damaged really in one way or another, right? And it's okay to be broken. What I believe isn't okay is I'm broken. I'm not going to do anything about it because I'm going to get with Annie, who has fixed herself, who has prepared herself, and I'm going to make it her responsibility to fix me. So now she's doing twice the work where I'm here with my feet up drinking a beer like I'm Al Bundy, right?
Yeah, I don't want to clean up other people's trauma spills. If they're leaking or bleeding, that's their own responsibility.
I tell people all the time, no one goes to the store and buys uh, a toaster or a microwave and the box is damaged and open without asking for a discount, right? So
Right.
to the men and women out there, if you're gonna come to us broken, we want a discount.
90% discount. If I'm going to be dealing with this.
Right? Exactly. What is the incentive for me? But in all seriousness, I think it's tough. It is tough. I remember speaking to someone, she's gonna be in her 60s soon.
Mhm.
And she's back on the dating market. And she tells me, Terrain, it is crazy out here. And I told her, it's crazy for you because you're comparing it to when you met your husband, which you probably all you had to do was spend 10 cents for the ferry, go to the farmer's market, and he was there waiting for you. Now you got to swipe. Now you actually have to ask the guy out. It's like a different world for women. What are some of the ways that it's maybe you have navigated your life post divorce?
It didn't occur to me until a period after the divorce, because I asked for the divorce on a Saturday, Easter weekend of 2017, and he signed up for Match.com on Sunday with our joint checking account and started dating on Tuesday. And that in that moment, I realized it was never about me. He was never going to see me. I was the seat filler in that marriage. I was filling a position of loneliness. And then I started dating people after, and I would meet these men in Las Vegas, and they too were seeking a seat filler. They didn't really want a relationship. They didn't want to be vulnerable. They didn't want to develop anything. They just wanted someone to go out to dinner with and have sex with. And that's not what I was looking for. I could pay for my own dinner. I don't care. You want to take me to a $200 dinner? I can pay for the $200 dinner. What I wanted was an exchange of vulnerability so that we would grow together. I don't want to be a seat filler for anybody. And that's my number one criteria when I'm dating now is this person really invested in a relationship, or are they trying to fill the void of loneliness? I'm okay being alone. I don't want to be somebody else's seat filler. That's been the biggest, like, in the date when I'm on the first date, is what is it that they genuinely want, and do they know what they want? And that's the second question is, do you know what you want? When I ask people on a date, and sometimes they don't know what they want. Like, then why am I here? If you say you want a long-term relationship on a dating site, but then go on a date with someone and you can't answer what you want, then you really don't want a long-term relationship. You want a seat filler. So
Oh, I can tell you, I know what they want.
I know what they want, but I can get that for free. I don't need to.
She doesn't have to spend $200, ladies and gentlemen. That's what she's saying.
But even the other side is I am in a place in my life financially where a free dinner isn't an incentive anymore. Conversation is. So if there's not an exchange of deep conversation, it's just surface.
I remember I went on a date years ago. And we don't talk anymore, so I can share this story. So
that's the criteria these days.
it is because I have some exes that actually watch my podcast, so that's why I try not to use them as an example, but I don't drop any names, so I try to be as vague as possible. So this was date number 2 or 3, I believe.
Okay.
And there's no intimacy. I think maybe we kissed, right? Well, that's first base, I guess. So we're sitting in my car. We're having so after the date, she's like, I don't want to go home yet. So we're sitting in my car, we're talking. And I just asked her, I was like, okay, so what's going on? Like, where do you, when's the next time we're going to see each other? And then she's like, okay, this is my expectation. I was like, okay, perfect. We're going to have that talk because it is a third date, right? She's like, Terrain. And I was like, oh Lord, when they use your phone name, it's not going to be good, right?
That's the warm up to a really hard conversation.
Exactly. Usually just, I would think this, but it's Terrain. This is my expectations. I'm okay. I said her name. She's like, in 6 months, I want to be engaged. Okay.
That's a good goal.
In 9 months, I want to be married. Okay. In 12 months, I want to have my child. I was like, whoa. I was like, whoa. I was like, is this third day talk? Because is this a third day? And then I was like, okay, I'm not gonna run because it's my car. I actually have to push her out, right? If it was her car, I could just get out and run. And then I was like, okay, where's this coming from? Because we haven't nothing. I don't even know if we're exclusive, right? It's a third date. She was like, my friends are getting married, and slowly but surely, I don't want to be the last one. And I get that, especially from a woman's perspective, right? Because there comes a point where if you want to have children, biology is ticking. So I get where she was coming from. What a lot of people, I guess, will have an issue with maybe is you're projecting that onto me, right? Because now you're in a situation where you're trying to hold me hostage to some of these things. And I didn't agree to have sex with you. Right?
Doesn't that take it out of an organic state and then it puts you into a checklist? Engagement, marriage, child. It's not about organic connection.
It wasn't at all. And so it ended after that. And I told her that what she wanted, I unfortunately couldn't give her. And then I saw her a few years later at a bar in a different city where we had that conversation. And she explained to me that she actually ended up in a relationship for a year or so with someone shortly after I did. And this person wasn't the right fit. There was all these types of issues. And I told her the reason why you ended up in a relationship with that person is because you wanted a child and to get married so badly that whomever was the next person, and it was literally the next person, you put yourself in that situation, first one available, right? And I told him, like, you don't have the child. Now I see you at a bar. You're telling me that you want to rekindle whatever we had, even though we didn't have anything. I was like, now you're in a situation where you're coming across as desperate, right? Because now you're trying to latch on to whatever the issue is. And I bring this up because sometimes when we date, we look for the next available person. As you mentioned, the seat holder, right? We're like, okay, Train couldn't give me what I wanted in 2003, but from 2004 into 2005, I was in a relationship. It didn't go anywhere. I run into him in 2006. Let's rekindle what was happening 3 years ago. It doesn't work that way sometimes. When you are when you're going on these dates with these men and you mention these questions and they kind of give you this puzzled look and they don't know how to answer, do you feel at that point where it's like, I think they're just wasting people's time?
Yeah. If someone said I don't want a relationship, if I were on Tinder, fair game, right? We know what we're getting into. But if it says long-term relationship on the profile, my assumption as a grown woman is that is genuinely what the person is seeking. I shouldn't have to then have a 30-question checklist to ensure that their definition and my definition match. But we do.
I say you get one of those sheets, the ones that fold down and just, okay, this is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want. There you go. That's the only way at this point, because we laugh, right? But it's like, okay, I go on a date with you, for example, and I say, Annie, this is what I want, right? These are my negotiables. These are my non-negotiables. And then I understand, hey, can you help me fulfill this life that I'm trying to create? If the answer is yes, I think that should be good enough, because a person should be honest enough and dating in good faith. But these days it seems that let me tell him or her what they want to hear and then see how much I can extract from that person. Have you experienced that?
I had people who lied about their height. I asked for 5'10" or higher because I'm 5'6" and I wear 3.5-inch heels. So I wanted someone that, even if I were in heels, in a dress, out to dinner, would still be taller than me, my hair. I didn't want someone down here in a photo. It's just my preference. It's not everyone's preference. It's mine. And I would put 5'10" or higher. And I would date men who I would go on a date and they would be 5'8". Like, why would you lie about your height? You can't even genetically change that. Like, that is fixed. At some point, the woman is going to discover you lied on the first or second date.
Yeah, some of these things, I remember there's this article where men now are actually, you can go get the surgery to break your legs, right? And then you get like 3 inches taller, right? And then sometimes I wonder, do they honestly don't think, I guess some people don't honestly believe that they're ever going to meet you, because it's like the person who, like from the men's perspective, you go on a date and her photo, she looks like she's about 140 pounds. You meet a person, she's 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Like you can't hide that. Or the man who's, let's say, I prefer someone that's like 5'10" or whatever the case is, and he's 5'4". You can't hide that. There's a time where one of my friends, she went on a date and she's looking at the person's picture, and the person was from one culture in the picture, and when they met them, they're a totally different culture. And she asked, she's like, "Hey, who's this?" She put up the phone, right? He's like, "Oh, that's my roommate. I use his pictures." But it's going to come out. Right? It's going to come out. Like, how much can you hide?
It tells the date that the person's not honest from the very beginning. They can't be authentic. They're going to hide for the rest of the relationship as well. At least that's what I infer from that.
That's what I get as well. Right? I get that as well, right? Like they're going to be dishonest if they're dishonest from the beginning, what else are they willing to hide? Because some of those things that they're lying about aren't really that serious when you think about it, right?
I went on a date with a guy who claimed he owned a helicopter company. So I said, all right, let's go get on the helicopter. Oh, no. There's qualifications and we have to make sure I was like, oh, no. Look, let me show you my phone. There's me in the Black Hawk. There's me in the C-130. There's me in the C-17. I'm fine. No. And then it turns out he had gone on a tour, a helicopter tour, which we have here, and then was posing as the owner of the helicopter company.
Oh my. Well, that's what, you know what? If I'm going to be honest with you, Annie, and everyone watching, lie, and lie. Because if everyone's going to do it, what's that saying? Fake it till you make it?
There is no way this man could even hold a conversation in that lane. He didn't even know, and he couldn't hold the conversation about the control panel. Like, if you're going to lie about that, at least like, catch me if you can, right? At least study what you have and then be the master of bullshit. I don't know. Can we swear? Can we swear on the podcast?
Oh, yeah. You're good. Swear away.
At least be really good at what you're lying about, not hold a conversation about it. At least make it plausible and believable.
So I guess as we close, what's some advice that you'd want to give the next generation who are divorced and they're looking to enter the dating market and make sure that the person isn't lying from the very beginning?
Ooh, be courageous enough to ask the hard questions up front. Ask the questions. What was your last relationship like? Because I want to hear how they describe their last relationship. If it's always the other person's fault, then they had no self-reflection or self-awareness. If they immediately went into dating, like how soon did you start dating after your divorce? Oh, within days, there was no growth period. So as we get older and we start dating and in the newer generation coming in, to ask the hard questions and pay attention to the answers.